out and shake their heads in shame in gossip circles.
Welcome to BuffaloWriter.com. The woman on the computer is my mother. And I'm sure you will agree that there is a resemblance. The singer is Patsy Cline, one of my mother's favorites. I never knew that until a few years before her death. I was out for a visit and she was playing this Patsy Cline tape. So then, following her death, I organized a remembrance over at my apartment for some friends of mine who had known her. And I had written a piece to be read on that night and also played some music, the Patsy Cline CD. And then I started to listen to that CD, and the more I listened to it, the more I loved that voice. And now Patsy Cline is one of my favorites. So I'm going to read the piece that I wrote for that occasion. Everyone loved my mother. She was a sweet woman. She had a good heart. She was kind and honest. She didn't have a mean bone in her body. Is there a heaven? We don't know. But the concept exists. And it exists for people like my mother. She was also tough, hardworking, and independent. She was a sports fan. She loved baseball and basketball. I was fond of saying to her, if I had money, I would buy you a baseball team. That would take the pressure off me, and you could bake cookies for all the players. My mother had a few do's and don'ts she lived her life by. 1, patience is a virtue. 2, a house can never be too clean. 3, insomnia means you aren't working hard enough. 4, bacon is good for you. 5, eat a piece of candy each night before retiring. 6, don't make friends with a cheap person. 7, when depressed, attend a basketball game. 8, the world doesn't owe you a living. There are a few others, but you get the idea. We have one mother. It's a particular kind of love, selfless and immense, without limit, and more than anything, endlessly forgiving. These are the things that convince us they will live forever. The death of this person is inconceivable. Then it happens, and we can't believe it. Now we have a problem. We have this hole in our life. And along with the hole, a sobering thought. Now we are truly on our own. It's impossible to speak of my mother without speaking of my father. They were married for 64 years. My father also had a few do's and don'ts. He operated according to more than a few. And quite different in tone and purpose than my mother. I won't labor this one. It was a sport. You've heard the expression, money burns a hole in my pocket. That was my father. Died a happy man without a dime to his name. He liked clothes, cars, dining out at a classy restaurant. The classier, the better. There were a lot of cars, beginning with the splendid cruiser types of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The Cads, Chryslers, Buicks. The downsizing effect, cars that occurred in the 60s. The phasing out of the super boat types, ushering in the era of the four-cylinder Peanut model. It's a low moment for him. Later on, when the money was tight, he was driving something called a Geo, car for midgets. Sad. We are the children of our parents. We can't escape that one. From my father, I got my enthusiasm and sense of humor. And from my mother, my energy and a very hard head. Of all the words I could use to describe her, energy goes to the top of the list. I will tell a story that I've told before, many times before, but is always worth repeating. It's Thanksgiving, circa 1975. My mother was a waitress. The restaurant was Biff's in Oakland, the world's busiest coffee shop. On this day, she worked an early shift, came home to make dinner. We had guests, visiting couple from England and their 2 kids, students at UC Berkeley, football players. I mention the football because it means you are cooking for 2 extra people. She comes home, she makes dinner, we eat, she cleans up by herself. That was the rule, no help allowed. We sit around for a bit and the guests leave. I'm starting to fade, but not my mother. She's just getting warmed up. She turns to me and says, "I'm bored. The Warriors are playing tonight. You want to go?" You're always reluctant to admit you have less energy than a 65-year-old woman who's just put in a full shift waitressing at the coffee shop, throws together a Thanksgiving dinner for 6 people, including 2 football players, now plans to finish it off by attending a basketball game. So I rouse myself, say, okay. That was my mother. Thank you for watching. See you in a couple of weeks.
The kisses that you give make our